Let's talk about why your attention is your most valuable asset and why you might be wasting it without even knowing it. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into supercharging our productivity. Again, this whole series has been about intentional living, and each week I've been trying to give you kind of some practical ways to build that intentional life that you want to live. I want to live it, you want to live it. And some of these things, gosh, I wish I had heard a decade ago or 2 decades ago. And some of these things I remember distinctly when I implemented this, my whole life changed. Like I remember it dramatically and distinctly. So we're going to talk about that today. And so we're going to look at the art of focus and how do we harness our attention for a productive day? Because in order for you to be productive, you actually have to kind of have the art of focus. And that's what leaders do. That's what powerful people do. We're going to get into that. So let's talk first about the power of attention. What are you focusing on? I mean, look at you're watching this video right now, but are you also scrolling? And are you also at a football game? Or are you at work? Or I mean, where are you? What are you doing? Well, there's something about this video that's in your ecosystem, but are you focusing? And if you are, well, that's really powerful because if you focus on it, then you can begin to implement it. And that's how your life begins to change. So whatever it is, we're going to get into that. So the key idea is what we choose to focus on shapes our experiences, our actions, and our outcomes. People say, well, I want to do this, or I want to be this. I want to be healthy. Well, I know that what you focus on will end up having a result. Like the Bible says, you reap what you sow. So if you're sowing seeds of health, guess what? You're going to reap a healthy lifestyle. If you're sowing seeds of doubt, you're going to reap a doubtful and an anxious life. So I know that when we put our focus to something, our outcome happens because that seed gets sown and it begins to build. So let's look at the problem. And the problem for all of us, myself included, everybody on the earth, is that distractions and multitasking pull our energy in many directions and they dilute our effectiveness. It's true. Now, I used to be the queen of multitasking. I mean, I could do 2 things at once and I loved it. It was literally my superpower. I remember in my 20s being able to do 2 or 3 things at the same time. Well, they used to talk about multitasking and how, what a gift it is and how people can do it. And then they started doing research about it. And what they found is there is no such thing as multitasking. What it is you have 2 different focuses that you're bouncing between like a pinball machine. And there are some of us that can do it well, and there are others of us that don't do it very well. But ultimately, you can't focus on the same 2 different things at the same time. You're just bouncing back and forth. And the older you get, and the more tired you get, and the more distracted you get, the harder it is to give your best work to that thing. So stop with the whole, I'm a great multitasker, and understand that your focus is one of the most valuable assets and resources you have. And if you try to hack it, you won't be able to. It'll only dilute your effectiveness. And so a lot of times when we are trying to figure out our focus and our attention, another thing we have to understand is that we sometimes can over-focus on the negatives, which is like problems or conflicts. And guess what? When we focus on the negatives, we focus on the economy, we focus on a conflict or relational problem. Well, it actually amplifies our stress and it limits our creativity, which we talked about in previous episodes about our brain either being in defense mode or discovery. So when we focus on the negatives, our brain goes into defense mode, which only allows us to see things for survival and not in discovery, which allows us to see opportunities and experiences that are available to us. Colossians 3:2 says to set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. When I read this scripture, I remember thinking, that's so cool. I got to think about heavenly things. And then it really struck me. It says to set your mind. It's like I intentionally have to take my brain and go, Havilah, we're going to set it on things that God cares about, things that God loves. You're going to actually set your mind on things working out, things happening, not on negativity, not on conflict. I'm going to have to intentionally set my mind. And that takes work. I wish it didn't, but it does. And that's the truth. And then Hebrews 12:2 says to fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and the finisher, the pioneer and the perfecter of our faith. Very, very important. So when it comes to focus, and again, we aren't just talking about this on a psychology level or a biology level. We're also talking about it from a theology level, which is God being involved in every aspect of our lives. What is God asking you to focus on right now? This is the question that changed my life. This is the question that altered the course of my life. And this happened in my 30s. Like, I remember early in my 20s having this, which was, are you going to focus on dating these people and doing these things? Are you going to focus on building the kingdom of God and focus on getting healthy and whole and serving the world? And yep. But in my 30s, I started having kids. I had 4 boys in 5 years. I got married. And within 6 years, I was newly married, had 4 kids. And I remember this part of me that wanted to be that young 20-year-old that was solving problems and, taking names and being the go-to girl. But then I have these 4 babies at home that need me, that I'm nursing and birthing and nurturing. And I have this husband that I prayed for and that's now needs something from me. And I had to begin to ask God, what do you want from me? What should my focus be? And you know what I realized, which is so hard, is that in order for me to honor my yes, honor the thing that God's asked me to do, I had to disappoint someone. And I hated it. I remember feeling so uncomfortable. Like, what do you mean? I can't be the good girl, that girl that says yes, the problem solver, the laying my life down for anybody who needs it, and also serve my family and be a rested, happy, whole mom? I can't do both. No. And I remember that conflict of, I'm going to have to disappoint someone. And what I realized is I would rather disappoint someone that isn't in my house than someone that is in my house that I'm called to steward and love and nurture. And that was important. And it was so hard, but it changed my life. And so why does that matter? Because the power of our attention changes everything. I remember there's this conversation. There was this guy at our church that was really good at everything. I mean, this guy could do anything. He ran our building project. He ran our internships. I mean, he was just an exceptional leader. But he was so busy doing all the things that needed to be done, he never excelled in that one thing that elevated him to living out his full purpose. And I remember sitting in a meeting and someone challenging him and saying, hey, here's the thing. You could do a lot of different things and you do a lot of different things. But if you want to be exceptional at one thing, you're going to have to start saying no to all the things you can do. And that's what I'm talking about. There's a lot of things that you can do. If you are, and many of you are intelligent and you are, you have your own gifts and graces and opportunities. But here's the thing, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. And that's the art of focus. What am I supposed to be focusing on? And I don't need anyone else to buy into it. I just need to know it's the right thing. So the second thing I really want us to look at is practical steps to refocus our attention. So again, I'm easily distracted. I know it might surprise you. I seem very calm and very focused. I'm not. And I tend to be easily distracted. We always say shiny things. I'm like over here and over there. And I love how my brain works. I love how God made me, but it doesn't really lend itself to great focus. And so I found a couple key tools and strategies that help me build my attention without changing my personality. Does that make sense? Without loathing the way I was created, but actually accepting how God created me, but being the best that I can be. And the first thing that I learned was that it was important to identify one thing that needed my attention that day. One thing. And they call it the top 3. You can do the top 3 if you want. But for me, it was that one thing that really needed my attention that day. And sometimes it was laundry. Other times it was a sermon. Sometimes it was a date night. Whatever that one thing was, I needed to actually in the morning identify it and actually go, this thing deserves my best attention. Not I need to get to that. I need to finish that. But can I bring my best to that one thing that needs to get done? And we were sitting down as a family last night with our 2 older boys/men. So we have an 18 and a 16-year-old. And we were setting up our week. And so we sat down, we said, hey, what's your top 3 this week? What are the top 3 things you're going to focus on this week? And we went through it. And one of them said, well, I got to get an oil change. And another one said, well, I got to take my driver's test. And it's so important, instead of just assuming our brain's going to know what to do, it's so important to understand that no matter how brilliant you are or successful you are, it's really good to break it down to what are my top 3 things of the day, or what are my top 3 things of the week, and what needs my best attention. Super important. And then another question you can ask yourself is, what's most important for me to focus on today? For me, in full honesty, it's usually the thing I'm avoiding. And I hate to say it, but it's usually the thing I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. But I know that it needs my attention, and that if I don't do it, it's going to be waiting for me tomorrow, and it's probably going to be worse. Like the laundry's going to only get worse, or that conversation only is going to get harder to have. And so it's really important to go, what's that focus that most like I need to focus on? And one of the questions that I ask myself is, what is the thing that only I can do? Right? Like, yeah, somebody could maybe fold clothes, or somebody could maybe pick up the kids, but like no one's going to make love to my husband. Like, let's be honest, right? So like, what's the one thing that only I can do that I need to be a part? Like, I can only do that with my kids because I'm their mom and they need that from me. And so really asking, what's that one thing that only I can do, and being really focused on that thing and not elevating everything. Okay, so we have to look at, again, practical steps to refocusing our attention is to prioritize what matters. Another thing that's really helps me, is you got to write it down and keep it visible. What I found is I like a Post-it note, because a long page, I can tend to write down 1,000 things and, begin to write things and draw things, and it just gets huge. But if I have a Post-it note and I have 1, 2, 3, it requires me that day just to write down those 3 things I have to get done that day. And it almost allows my brain to relax, that I don't have 50 things. I have 3 things, and I can do 3 things. And it's amazing how helpful that is. And then secondly, we have to eliminate distractions. So this is really important. In fact, I tell our authors this a lot, because we have an author school where we coach authors how to write their book in 16 weeks. And I explain that you have to be vigilant with distractions. Like, we live in a world that is unlike our parents lived in, or unlike even we were as kids. We live in a world that has constant distractions. I mean, do you guys remember back in the day, only doctors had beepers, right? Everybody else was kind of like living free, and you would get home and the phone would ring. And that's when, I remember growing up without a voice, like a voice messaging system, where you had to literally call. And if nobody was home, the phone rang until it was done. And that was it. And then we created these little messaging systems where you could actually like leave a message. And even that you wouldn't get until you got home. But then we had friends that were doctors, and they would get a little beep, and it would beep, and they would go, oh, I got to call the hospital. They need me. Well, now every single one of us have these phones on us, and these notifications can be everything from a sports score to a medical emergency to something in a political environment, whatever it might be. And those things are coming at us constantly. And we may say it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal, because our brains are, we still live in survival mode a lot, where we are in fight or flight. And we tend to, when something comes, we have to make a quick decision to either edit it or pull it in and begin to work on it. And so we talk to authors about this so much. But for me, I found that even if I have a simple distraction, a notification, they talk about that it takes not just 30 seconds, it takes minutes, like 10 minutes to get back into your focused state again. So we think it's no big deal, but the truth is, when you get that notification, your brain goes into that. And even if you dismiss it, to get back into a focused state, you're wasting so much time. And so why is that important? Because what we want to do is eliminate those distractions. So for what we tell our authors is, you're going to go around to your family members, whoever you live with, your roommate, and you're going to let them know, in the morning, I'm working on this. If it's an emergency, please knock on the door, come in and see me. Otherwise, I will not have my notifications on. I'm going to focus solely on this task. And so what's really important is we got to turn off our notifications. For me personally, I don't have social media notifications on. I don't think that's helpful. I want to own socials. I don't want them to own me. And so for me, if it's not my job, I let those things go. I don't need all those notifications. But then also I create boundaries. So some people will say, well, you work at home. So they'll want to knock on your door. They'll want to pop in. Family thinks you're home. And so what I often will have to say is I'm at work, or I don't answer the door when they come to the door, or I don't answer the phone. And you might say, well, they know I'm home, or they know. But the truth is you have to focus, and you're allowed to focus. And the truth is that you can't get the things done that you need to get done if you're busy pleasing a bunch of other people. And so you have to be deliberate about your focus. And then also, I tend to really require myself to focus on one task at a time. We teach all these little systems in the author school, but one of them is called the Pomodoro effect. And you can look it up. It's on YouTube. But really, it's this strategy the scientist created, which allows focus, which is where you focus for a certain amount of time, and then you get a little break, and then you do another amount of time, and then you get a little break, and then you do another focus, and then you get a longer break. And they have these sections of focus and breaks, which allows your brain to be in discovery mode, and it helps you, move forward. So there's a lot out there, but maybe find a great strategy for that. But you have to eliminate your distractions. And so I love the quote that says, you can't do your best work while scrolling through your phone. That sounds so personal and so painful. Thank you so much. Okay, so thirdly is we want to reframe our negative focus. So if your attention is stuck on a problem, I want you to ask yourself this, because a lot of times, I don't know if you're like me, I don't even know that I'm thinking about the problem. But to me, have you ever had this where you charge your phone and then you're not on your phone all day, and you go to pick up your phone and it's depleted to like 10%, and you think, I wasn't even on my phone. Why is it depleted to 10%? And then you start getting into your phone and you realize that there's a system that's been running the whole time. Maybe it's, a game your kid pulled up, or some other thing, or a video in the background, and it's depleting all of that juice, that apple juice, battery juice, and you didn't even know it. That's what negative things happen when our focus is on something and we're not thinking about that. But unless we actually tackle that thing, it just runs in the background, and it actually depletes us of energy, and it actually causes us to feel overwhelmed, even though we're not even focused technically on the problem. So 2 questions you want to ask yourself, I ask myself, is what's the opportunity here? So a lot of times what I do is I'll ask myself, have I had a problem like this before that I thought I wasn't going to make it and I made it? So I go back to looking at, well, when was I successful in this before? When was there a time when I thought, this is terrible, I'm never going to make it, and then I make it through and I realize I made it? So I go back into my past history and I ask, hey, is there a history where I've been able to overcome it? Did I die that day? No, I didn't die. So I'm going to be okay. But then what's the opportunity here? Either it's just a trial or it's an actual learning opportunity. Someone said, well, I started a business and I lost all this money. And they said, well, you could either just lose the money, or you could say it cost me $10,000 to learn how to do certain things and how not to do certain things. So it can either be educational or it can be failure. It's how we reframe that and ask what the opportunity is. Second question is, what is one small thing I can do today to improve this thing? So I can't change everything. I can't get out of debt today. I can't, fix the relational problem. I can't lose 25 pounds today. But what I can do is make a dinner. Or what I can do is go get cash and only do cash today. What I can do is send a simple text of, hey, thinking about you, instead of having a 2-hour conversation about everything that they did or didn't do that was wrong or right. So again, a small, simple thing. And then the third thing I want us to look at today is to manage our focus throughout the day. How do we do that? Because you can't just say, I'm going to focus on this today and then never think about it for the rest of the day. No, you have to actually revisit your focus all day. And so here's what is recommended. And some of these things I'm using from Carolyn Webb from her book, How to Have a Good Day. None of these are direct quotes, but the ideas I really love. And one of them is to use focus anchors. And what that means is to use key moments to pause and ask, am I focused on what really matters right now? Am I focused on what matters most right now? So when you feel, again, for me, I go on autopilot and I'm now at lunchtime and I'm like, what did I do today? And I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And to actually go, okay, anchored moment. when I get home, I'm going to sit in the car. I'm going to ask this question before I go to bed at night while I wash my face and I sit at my vanity. What how'd the day go? And I'm going to begin to have these moments where I'm asking myself, am I focused on what really matters most right now? And the truth is, for some of us, we don't want to ask that because then we feel ashamed because we're not. But we have to not be afraid of that question. Am I focused on what really matters most right now? And when we do that, it's amazing the alignment of, oh, nope, I'm not. Or, oh, that's not my top 3 today. I got to get back and focus again. So the second thing is simply this, to shift when necessary. So when you're feeling overwhelmed or scattered, you're going to take a 2-minute break. We talked about this throughout the month, but you're going to take a 2-minute break and you're going to go for a short walk, or you're going to stand up, or you're going to go call a friend. You're going to begin to go, you know what? I'm going to actually take a break from my brain overanalyzing or over-focusing on this, and I'm going to do something different that allows my brain to take a breather and to refocus. And then you're going to reset your attention and return to your priorities. How do I do that? Well, I have my little Post-it note that has my top 3 things I'm focusing on that day. And so I go back to that Post-it note. And here's what happens. For me, sometimes in order for me to not feel overwhelmed or scattered is to actually cross out the thing that I've done. So out of those 3 things, if I've done something, it's very powerful to walk over and cross that out because your brain immediately gets that dopamine reward that you completed something, and you begin to, again, refocus on those top 3 things. So we want to be able to reset our attention and return to our priorities. And then lastly is this, we want to celebrate our small wins. So you want to acknowledge your progress. If it was just like, hey, usually I wouldn't think about it, but today I asked the question, am I focused on what really matters? Okay, I did it one time today. Awesome. And begin to acknowledge, because we're just like kids and puppies. When we reward ourselves for smaller things, we want to do it again. And so what we want to do is acknowledge those smaller things, because then that reward hormone gets released and we want to do it over and over and over again. It's very, very important. So what are we going to do? How are we going to pull all this series together? How are we going to pull it all in for being most productive? Well, tonight, our call to action is simple. We're going to write down our top priority for tomorrow, or our top 3, depending on how productive you want to be. You're going to sit down before the day tomorrow. You're going to sit down tonight and write down your top 3. And then you're going to maybe, possibly, if you can, spend the first hour of your day focused solely on the task that you need to do. Do the hardest thing first, they say. Don't wait till the end. Do the hardest thing first. It's called a push goal, but if you do it, all of a sudden it pushes things. Have you ever done that? The one thing you don't want to do when you do it, once it's done, you have all this energy to do the things you've been putting off. It's like making that phone call. Once that phone call's made, now you're going to make 5 other phone calls. It's the power of getting that one thing done. So you're going to spend the first hour of that day doing the thing you've been avoiding. You've been procrastinating. You're going to clean out your fridge, guys. You're going to do it because that thing's been calling your name and it's bugging the heck out of you. Or you're going to call your mom because you know you're going to hear about it if you don't, but you're like, I'm done putting it off. I'm going to call her and we're going to have a conversation and I'm going to have an out, right? 5 minutes, whatever it might be, you're going to do it for the first hour. And then lastly, throughout the day, and what I would do, and I've done this before, is even on my bathroom mirror or a Post-it note on my dashboard of my car, I will write a question, and it might say something like, is this the best use of my attention? And just something, whatever it might be, whether it's someone engaging me at work or my spouse asking me something or my kid, I will ask myself this question, is this the best use of my attention? It doesn't mean that I don't want to do it. Like if I don't want to do it, then it's not. No, it is. Yes, because this investment is worth it. And once we know that, we can kind of suck it up and do the hard thing because we know it is the best use of our attention because we want this thing to grow. And just because it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong. And if it's hard, sometimes it's because it matters and because it's the breakthrough. It's like the threshold to breakthrough. And so when I see hard things when I was young and immature, I would avoid them. But as I've gotten older, when it's difficult or tough, I begin to have this acknowledgement of, wow, something must be waiting for me on the other side of this because this difficult thing is trying to stop me from moving forward. So I hope this is encouraging to you. Again, the idea of supercharging your productivity by writing that thing down, spending the first hour of your day focused on that task that must be done, that needs your attention, and then asking yourself that question throughout the day, Is this the thing that needs my attention the most? You do those top 3 things, I promise you in the next week, your whole life is going to change. I know it sounds like too good to be true, but it is true. It is that simple. Implementing these things matter, and you'd be shocked at how little things change the course of our life, and it changes our experience. So I hope you love this. I hope that you enjoyed it. And again, I did mention our author school. It is time sensitive. Applications are open right now. It's totally free to be curious, to look at the link in our bio and go take a look, see if this is something that will serve you. You can apply, and we are taking applications right now. So don't miss out. Let's get that book done. It's been in your heart forever. Let's finish it. We can help you do that. No big deal. I promise you can do this. All right, you guys, that's it for now. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you next time.